Okay, so we've let him get some air now, and I'm going to work on the left lead now. Okay, in a perfect world, I work on each lead each time I stop, but sometimes things might not go as good as you want, or it might be a really hot day in the middle of summer where you might only get one lead done. Okay, and that's fine too. It's not the end of the world. Okay. I like to typically stay on one lead until I feel like I've got something accomplished, okay? And then when I've got something accomplished, if the horse has got enough air or energy left, I'll work on the other lead. I typically work on whatever lead they struggle with the most first. So all horses will stop better on a certain lead or run better on a certain lead. Whatever lead they're not as good at, that's the one I work on first because it's got the most energy in the horse and I can get more done. If I don't get to both leads every time I stop them, it's not the end of the world. It's a perfect world I would. I just find that you're better off getting more progress on one lead than going from one to the other, and not quite getting anything done on either lead. It's a little bit cooler day today. We're giving him some air. It's the fall, so I'm going to work on that left lead. So when I change leads, I go back to the beginning again. I'm going to run him end to end a couple of times, make sure he's running straight and waiting for me and going up into that fence. Remember, the rundown supersedes the stop. If the rundown's not good, the stop has no chance of being good. So even though I want to stop maybe, I have to remember to let the rundown dictate what happens. So I spanked him a bit there because I could feel him running with the brake on, which is, again, not a bad thing. It stops on his brain. But he's got to run. There's a fine line there. The horse has got to be willing to run and build speed to the other end of the arena, but he can't be running off and getting ahead of you. At the same time, if he's running down the end and he's constantly trying to stop on you, that's not going to work either. So it's very much like a seesaw in the wind. You have to make slight adjustments the whole time. Squeeze. So because he's wanting to stop a little bit too much and not run clean enough, like run free enough, I'm going to let him rest down the end here a little bit more as a desire to want to get down here. So typically I said I don't rest him a lot down the end, and I typically don't, but in his case, because he's a little bit reluctant to get down here, he's lazy, I got to give him a little more incentive to want to get down here. Well, what's his incentive? If he's a lazy horse, rest. So I'm not going to jog him now. I'm just going to walk a couple of circles and go back the other way. The faster they want to get down the end or get ahead of you, the more work you put down here. The lazier they are, the less. Squeeze. Good boy. That time there, he felt pretty good. Just let him get some air here, let him rest, rub on him. It's not unusual for horses to have one lead that they run better on, they run straighter on, they run more relaxed on. Okay, don't let that bother you if one lead's pretty good and the other one seems kind of crappy. That's horse training for you. Horses are always got one good side and one bad side. I work 2/3 on the bad side, 1/3 on the good side. So typically, he's better on the left lead in his rundowns and stops, so that's why I work on the right lead first. So I'm gonna run down the other end again, and then after that, we'll see if he's ready to stop. Little tight there. What do I mean by tight? A little bit, run them with the handbrake on. Like I said, guys, it's a fine line. If they don't run with a little bit of the handbrake on, they don't have a big enough desire to stop. But if they run down there with the handbrake too much on, then it affects the quality of the stop because the rundown's not clean. So the lazier he is, or the less they want to get up into the fence, meaning carry their momentum, the more you rest them face like this. The hotter they are, or the more they're trying to get to the other end in a hurry, trot your circles, walk them down here, go back the other end, or turn them around and stop and just let them face the other way. Let's try this again. Whoa. Now right then, it was a little bit my fault this, and my timing wasn't quite right just then. I kind of said whoa to him when he was a little bit out of stride. It took him a stride to get his mind back in the game, and then he stopped pretty good. So that was more my fault than his fault. He finished the stop well, but he got into it a little bit awkward there. But I would say that was more my timing was a little bit off there. I spanked on him just then to get him, when I squeeze, if he doesn't go, when I squeeze or speed up, I'll spank him. Squeeze, cluck, spank. Well, I don't really cluck because he's deaf, but you get what I'm trying to say. So squeeze, spank him, squeeze, spank him. Kicking will work too, but spanking works a little more effectively. Okay, a little more effective. So again, I like the fact that he's a little bit on the lazy side. He was good with his front end just then. What do I mean good with his front end? He pedaled up front. Oh, good boy. This ground is a little bit too slick today. Like I'm gonna adjust my Kaiser drag so it's a little bit deeper. It's a little bit shallow, and I feel like he's losing his feet just a little bit. The deeper the ground, the more the horse has to push. The shallower the ground, they don't have to try as hard. Well, if you've got a big stopping horse that tries hard, typically on too shallow ground, they have a tendency to not stop as well because their feet feel like they're slipping out from underneath him. Like I said, when they're learning, they're gonna not always keep both feet in the ground correct at the same time. Don't worry too much about that. As long as you feel them overall trying to stop, as you keep practicing, assuming you got a good horseshoe or two, they will just naturally learn to keep their legs together and not do that. So now that I'm stopping Titan more, I've got a no-turn bell boot. It's made by Classic Equine. It's an extremely handy piece of equipment. It'll protect the back of his heels from overreaching. Sometimes when they slide, they'll slide up and grab the back of their heel on their front foot. They'll often rip a front shoe off if they've got front shoes on, or they'll slice into the back of their bulb. So that no-tone bell boot will protect that, okay? I'll also use a knee boot. It's a boot that goes over his knee. I didn't use it today, but when I'm turning him around, I always put a knee boot on him as well. But Classic Equine Equibrand make a great one that protects that knee from, as the leg's crossing over, you don't want them to accidentally bump one knee on top of the other one. Typically now that we're getting into harder maneuvers, I'll usually use polo wraps because I find the polo wraps give a horse a little extra support of their tendons and legs. I use the legacy boots, for most of my training, but when I start getting up where I'm putting, more harder training on the horses physically, I want to try to protect their legs a little bit more. I'm a nut about protecting the legs. No legs, no horse, okay? So go to Classic Equine website, equibrand.com, and you'll see the knee boot and we sell the no-turn bell boots here at Downunder Horsemanship on our website as well.